Ethan Mercer stood frozen in the center of his ex-girlfriend's engagement party, champagne glass trembling in his hand, watching Madison parade her tech mogul fiancé like a trophy he'd never be. 3 years since their breakup, and she still knew exactly how to make him feel worthless. But when he fled to an empty balcony to catch his breath, he found something he didn't expect. Celeste Rowan, the untouchable CEO whose face graced every business magazine in the city, crying alone in the dark. Two broken people, one honest conversation, and a connection that would either save them both or destroy everything they'd built. If you want to see where this story goes, hit that like button and comment your city below so I can see how far this journey travels. The Crystal Gardens ballroom looked like someone had vomited money everywhere and called it taste. Ethan Mercer adjusted his borrowed tie. Daniel had loaned it to him that morning with a pitying look that said, "I know you can't afford this," and tried not to calculate how much Madison's engagement party cost. Probably more than he made in 6 months. Definitely more than his monthly child support battle with his ex-wife's lawyer was currently draining from his account. "Daddy, you're doing the face again." He looked down at Lila, who was supposed to be at his sister's house right now, not clutching his hand in her Sunday dress while surveying the room like a tiny general assessing enemy territory. She'd insisted on coming. "You shouldn't go alone to see the mean lady," she'd said, with the kind of protective fury only a 7-year-old could muster. "What face?" Ethan asked. "The one where your eyes go all squinty and you look like you're trying to solve a math problem that makes you sad." Christ. When had his kid gotten so perceptive? "I'm fine, Bean, just—" He spotted Madison across the room, her hand resting possessively on her fiancé's arm, and felt his stomach drop. "Just remembering why we don't come to parties like this." "Because rich people are weird?" "Lila, you said it first, last week, when that lady at the grocery store asked if your shoes were vintage, and you said no, they're just old." Ethan closed his eyes. He really needed to watch what he said around her. "Okay, new rule. What Daddy says when he's tired doesn't count." "That's a terrible rule." "Yeah, well, I'm making it anyway." He squeezed her hand. "What? Come on. Let's grab some of those fancy cheese things before someone realizes we don't belong here." They'd made it halfway to the appetizer table when Madison spotted them. She moved through the crowd like a shark through water, elegant, purposeful, and absolutely certain of her dominance. Her engagement ring caught the light, a diamond so large it looked like a weapon. "Ethan," her smile didn't reach her eyes. It never had, even when they were together. He'd just been too young and stupid to notice. "I wasn't sure you'd actually come. Got the invitation." He'd almost thrown it away. Would have, if his sister hadn't found it in the trash and given him that look. "The one that said you need closure, you idiot." "Hmm? And you brought—" Madison's gaze dropped to Lila with the kind of assessment usually reserved for something found on the bottom of a shoe. "Your daughter. How unexpected." Lila squeezed his hand harder. Ethan squeezed back, a silent promise. "I've got you." "Lila wanted to come," he said evenly. "Say hi, Bean." "Hi." Lila's voice was small but steady. "Your dress is very shiny." Madison's laugh was like ice cracking. "It's Valentino, darling, not shiny, luminous." She turned back to Ethan, her expression shifting to something that might have passed for sympathy if you didn't know her. "So, how have you been? I heard about the Morrison project falling through. Such a shame." There it was. The knife slipped between his ribs with surgical precision. The Morrison project had been his best shot at breaking into commercial architecture. 6 months of work, designs he'd stayed up until 3 a.m. perfecting, a presentation he'd practiced until the words lost all meaning. And then Marcus Morrison had looked at his portfolio, looked at Ethan's small firm's lack of major projects, and chosen the bigger company with the fancier address. "We're doing fine," Ethan said, "working on some residential stuff, smaller projects. Translation, I'm barely keeping my head above water, and we both know it." Madison's fiancé appeared at her side, all white teeth and expensive watch. "Babe, your mother's looking for you. Something about the seating chart?" "Of course she is." Madison sighed the sigh of someone whose biggest problem was where people sat at her engagement dinner. "Ethan, this is Derek. Derek, this is Ethan. We dated years ago before I knew what I actually wanted." The casual cruelty of it took Ethan's breath away. Not because it hurt anymore. He was over Madison, had been for years, but because she said it in front of Lila, like his daughter was just another piece of furniture in the room. Derek extended a hand, his grip exactly as firm and meaningless as Ethan expected. Good to meet you, man. Madison's told me all about you. The architect, right? Still doing the small residential stuff? That's right. Cool, cool. You know, if you ever want to talk about scaling up, I've got some connections in commercial real estate, always happy to help out Madison's exes. He said it like he was doing charity work, like Ethan was a project. I appreciate that, Ethan lied. Lila tugged on his sleeve. Daddy, I need the bathroom. Sure, Bean. He nodded to Madison and Derek. Excuse us, congratulations, by the way, on the engagement. He didn't wait for Madison's response. Just took Lila's hand and walked toward the hallway, his heart pounding with the particular shame of being pitied by people who'd never worked for anything real in their lives. I don't actually need the bathroom, Lila whispered. I know. Thanks for the save. She's really mean. Yeah. Ethan found an empty hallway, pressed his back against the wall, and tried to remember why he'd thought coming here was a good idea. She is. Are you okay? He looked down at his daughter, this fierce, funny, impossibly kind kid who somehow still believed he had his shit together and felt something crack in his chest. No, but I will be. Just need a minute. Want me to get you one of those cheese things? They're really good. I ate like 6. You ate 6? They're tiny, they barely count. Despite everything, he laughed. Get out of here. Go eat more cheese before they realize we're raiding their fancy appetizers. You sure? Positive. I just need some air. Lila studied him with those 2 old eyes, then nodded. Okay, but I'm timing you. If you're not back in 10 minutes, I'm coming to find you. Deal. He watched her dart back toward the ballroom, then turned and walked the other direction, looking for a balcony, a terrace, anywhere he could breathe without feeling like the walls were closing in. He found a door at the end of the hallway, pushed it open, and stepped out into the cool night air, and nearly ran straight into the woman crying on the balcony. She turned quickly, wiping at her face, and for a second Ethan didn't recognize her. Then the light from the ballroom caught her features, and his brain stuttered to a halt. Celeste Rowan. The Celeste Rowan, CEO of Rowan Enterprises, the woman who'd turned her father's failing construction company into a multi-billion-dollar development empire before she was 35. Her face was on the cover of Forbes last month. She'd given a TED Talk about sustainable urban development that Ethan had watched 3 times, taking notes like a grad student. And she was here, on this balcony, crying like her heart was broken. I'm sorry, he said quickly. I didn't mean to. I'll go. No. Her voice was rougher than he expected, raw with emotion. Stay. I'm the one who should apologize. This is humiliating. Crying? That's not humiliating. That's just being human. She laughed, a bitter sound. Well, that's not something I get to be very often. Ethan didn't know what to say to that, so he did what his sister always told him to do when he was nervous. He shut up and waited. Celeste turned back to the railing, her fingers gripping the metal like she was holding herself together through sheer force of will. You're not supposed to be out here. Neither are you, I'm guessing. No, I'm supposed to be in there, networking, making connections, playing the game. She wiped at her eyes again, her shoulders stiff. That's all it ever is. A game, and I'm so tired of pretending I'm enjoying it. Ethan leaned against the railing beside her, careful to keep his distance. Then why do it? Because it's what's expected. Because the company needs it. Because if I stop for even a second, if I show any weakness, there are 20 men waiting to tear me apart and take what I've built. She looked at him then, really looked at him. Who are you? Nobody. Just someone who got invited to his ex-girlfriend's engagement party because she wanted to prove she won. Did she? I don't know. Probably. He shrugged. She's marrying a guy who looks like a cologne ad, and I'm wearing a borrowed tie and raising a kid on a credit card that's about to max out. So yeah, she definitely won. Celeste's expression softened. You have a daughter. Lila, she's 7, smart as hell and way too good at reading my emotions. She sounds wonderful. She is. She's the only thing I've ever done right. They stood there in silence for a moment, 2 strangers sharing the kind of honesty that only happens when you've both hit bottom and stopped pretending otherwise. I was supposed to give a speech tonight, Celeste said quietly, about the new development project, about innovation and vision and all the things people want to hear from someone like me. But I came out here instead because the thought of standing in front of those people and lying about how fulfilled I am made me want to scream. So don't give the speech. It's not that simple. Why not? Because I'm Celeste Rowan. I don't get to just not show up, not perform, not be perfect. Ethan turned to face her fully. That sounds exhausting. It is. Then maybe you should stop. She laughed again, but this time it sounded more real. Just like that? Just stop? Why not? Worst case, people talk. Best case, you get to be human for 5 minutes. I don't think I remember how. Sure you do. You're doing it right now. Celeste looked at him, something shifting in her expression, like she was seeing him for the first time. What's your name? Ethan. Ethan Mercer. I know who you are. Everyone knows who you are. Right. She looked away, and for a second Ethan saw something flash across her face. Loneliness, maybe, or the weight of being recognized everywhere she went. That's the problem, isn't it? Is it? When everyone knows who you are, no one actually knows you. They know the version they need, the CEO, the boss, the woman who has her shit together. Her voice cracked. But they don't know the person who sometimes sits in her car in the parking garage and cries because she can't remember the last time someone asked her how she was doing and actually wanted to hear the answer. Ethan's chest tightened. How are you doing, Celeste? She turned to him, her eyes bright with tears. I'm so tired, and I'm so lonely, and I'm terrified that this is all there is, work and appearances and playing a role until I die. That's not all there is. How do you know? Because I'm standing here talking to you, and you're not the CEO right now. You're just a person, and that person is interesting as hell. Celeste stared at him. Then slowly she smiled. You're very direct. I'm too tired to be anything else, and you seem like someone who gets enough bullshit without me adding to it. You're right about that. They stood there, the sounds of the party drifting out through the door, and for the first time in months, maybe years, Ethan felt like he could breathe. Can I ask you something? Celeste said. Sure. Why did you come tonight if you knew it would be awful? Ethan thought about Madison's invitation, about the hope that maybe seeing her happy would make him feel less like a failure, about the stupid, desperate need for closure that had brought him here. I thought it would help, seeing her moved on, knowing she's happy. Did it? No. It just reminded me that I'm still stuck, still struggling, still the guy who can't get his big break. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You know what the worst part is? I'm good at what I do, really good, but nobody cares about talent when you don't have the right connections or the right address or the right last name. I know that feeling. Do you? You're Celeste Rowan. I'm my father's daughter. That's all most people see. They don't see the work. They don't see the nights I spent learning the business from the ground up while he was busy drinking himself to death. They just see the name and assume I inherited success instead of fighting for it. Ethan looked at her, really looked, and saw past the perfect makeup and the designer dress to the woman underneath, the one who'd clawed her way to the top and was still terrified of falling. We're a mess, aren't we? He said. Completely. Want to be a mess together for a little while longer? I've got about 5 more minutes before my daughter comes looking for me. Celeste's smile was real this time. I'd like that. So they stood there, 2 broken people on a balcony, and talked about architecture and bad relationships and the impossible weight of expectations, about Lila and her obsession with dinosaurs, about Celeste's younger brother who died in a car accident when she was 19, about the fear of never being enough no matter how hard you worked. And when Lila finally appeared in the doorway, her face lighting up with relief at finding Ethan, Celeste didn't pull away or put her mask back on. She just smiled at the little girl and said, "You must be Lila. Your dad's been telling me about your dinosaur collection." Lila's eyes went wide. You like dinosaurs? I think they're fascinating. Did you know the earliest known dinosaur fossils are from the Triassic period, about 230 million years ago? Yes. And the biggest one was the Argentinosaurus, and it was like 100 feet long. Ethan watched his daughter launch into a passionate explanation of sauropod anatomy, while Celeste Rowan, billionaire CEO, untouchable business legend, listened with genuine interest, and something shifted in his chest. Maybe this night wasn't a complete disaster after all. When Lila finally paused for breath, Celeste looked at Ethan. I should get back. People will notice I'm gone. Right, of course. She started to walk away, then stopped, turned back. This might be completely inappropriate, but would you want to get coffee sometime? Just to talk. No business, no networking, just two people who understand what it's like to feel stuck. Ethan's heart kicked against his ribs. Are you serious? I don't say things I don't mean. Then, yeah, I'd like that. Celeste pulled out her phone, handed it to him. Put your number in, I'll text you. He did, his hands shaking slightly. When he handed the phone back, their fingers brushed, and the contact sent electricity straight through him. Thank you, Celeste said softly, for being honest with me, for not treating me like I'm made of glass or like I'm some untouchable thing, for just seeing me. Thank you for the same. She smiled one more time, then walked back into the party, her shoulders straighter than they'd been before. Lila tugged on Ethan's sleeve. Daddy, was that lady really Celeste Rowan, the one from the magazine? Yeah, Bean, it was. She's really pretty, and she knows about dinosaurs. She does. Are you going to have coffee with her? Maybe. Good. Lila grabbed his hand. Can we go home now? I ate too much cheese and my stomach hurts. Ethan laughed, really laughed, for the first time all night. Yeah, let's get out of here. They walked back through the party, past Madison and her fiancé, and all the people who'd looked at Ethan like he was something to be pitied. But he didn't feel pitiful anymore. He felt like maybe, just maybe, something was about to change. His phone buzzed as they reached the car. Unknown number. This is Celeste. Coffee on Thursday? There's a place on 5th that makes terrible coffee, but incredible pastries. We can complain about life. He grinned, typed back, I'll bring Lila. She has strong opinions about pastries. Celeste. Perfect. I have strong opinions about terrible coffee. It's a date. Well, not a date. Meeting of people who need someone to talk to. Ethan. A date between two people who are terrible at dating. Got it. Celeste. I didn't say I was terrible at dating. Ethan. You're texting me instead of networking at a party where you're supposed to give a speech. You're at least a little terrible at this. Celeste. Fair point. See you Thursday. Ethan Mercer. He looked at Lila, who was buckling herself into her booster seat with the determined focus of someone who definitely ate too much cheese. Hey Bean, how would you feel about having coffee with Celeste on Thursday? The dinosaur lady? Yeah, the dinosaur lady. Lila considered this. Will there be pastries? She says there will be. Then okay. But you have to promise not to do the sad math face the whole time. Deal. As Ethan pulled out of the parking lot, leaving Madison's engagement party and all its expensive misery behind, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the desperate, grasping kind that always led to disappointment, but the quiet, steady kind that said maybe, just maybe, good things were possible, even for people like him. Thursday came faster than Ethan expected. He'd spent the intervening days telling himself not to get his hopes up, that Celeste would probably cancel, that a woman like her didn't actually want to spend time with a struggling architect and his 7-year-old. But the text came Wednesday night. Still on for tomorrow, 10 a.m. I need a break from my board meeting and you seem like a good excuse. So here he was, walking into a cafe that looked like someone's grandmother had decorated it with every doily and floral print known to humanity, Lila's hand in his heart doing something stupid and hopeful in his chest. Celeste was already there, sitting in a corner booth, her laptop closed in front of her. She'd traded the designer dress for jeans and a soft sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked younger, more real. Hi, Ethan said, suddenly aware of how worn his jacket was, how Lila's shoes were scuffed from playground adventures. Hi. Celeste's smile was genuine. Lila, I'm glad you could make it. I've been researching Argentinosaurus and I have questions. Lila lit up like a Christmas tree. Really? Really, I read that some scientists think they might have been able to run, but I don't understand how something that big could generate enough speed. What do you think? And just like that, Lila was off, climbing into the booth and launching into an explanation of dinosaur locomotion that involved a lot of hand gestures and at least 3 sound effects. Ethan slid into the booth across from them, ordered coffee and pastries, and watched Celeste Rowan, the woman who'd been on the cover of every major business magazine, who commanded boardrooms full of men twice her age, listen to his daughter with the kind of attention most adults didn't bother to give kids. "Your turn," Celeste said after Lila had exhausted her knowledge of sauropod biomechanics. "Tell me about architecture. Why did you choose it?" "Because I wanted to build things that mattered, spaces that made people feel something." He shrugged. "Sounds stupid when I say it out loud." "It doesn't sound stupid. It sounds passionate." "Passion doesn't pay the bills." "No. But neither does doing work you hate just because it's profitable." She took a sip of her terrible coffee, made a face. "Trust me, I know." "You hate your work?" "I don't hate it. I built this company because I wanted to prove I could, that I was more than my father's screw-up daughter. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about creating something meaningful and started being about protecting what I'd already built, about not showing weakness, about winning. Sounds lonely. It is. They talked for 2 hours, about dreams and failures and the gap between who they wanted to be and who they'd become. About Ethan's designs for community spaces that would never get built because he didn't have the connections. About Celeste's ideas for sustainable housing that kept getting shot down by her board because they weren't profitable enough. Lila, bless her, entertained herself with coloring pages the waitress brought over, only interrupting occasionally to contribute her own opinions on adult problems. "If the rich people won't listen, just build it anyway and show them it works. That's what I do when you say I can't have cookies before dinner." "She's brilliant," Celeste said, watching Lila attack her coloring page with the focus of a surgeon. "She's a pain in my ass," Ethan said fondly. "But yeah, she's pretty great. Does her mother—" Celeste stopped. "Sorry, that's too personal." "No, it's okay. Her mother left when Lila was 2. Decided motherhood wasn't for her. Haven't heard from her in 5 years except through lawyers demanding I pay more child support while she lives in California with her new husband." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. We're better off without her." He meant it. Whatever else was broken in his life, Lila was solid, real. "What about you? No kids?" "No, no time, no partner, just work." She smiled, but it was sad around the edges. "My younger brother used to say I was married to my job." He wasn't wrong. "The one who died?" "Yeah. Nathan. He was 23. Drunk driver hit him head-on his way home from my birthday party." Her voice went flat. "I spent the night celebrating turning 30 while he bled out in a hospital. By the time I got the call, he was already gone." "Jesus, Celeste. It's been years. I should be over it." "That's not how grief works." "No, I guess it's not." She looked at him, something vulnerable in her expression. "You're easy to talk to. Has anyone ever told you that?" "Not recently. Most people think I'm too direct." "Most people are full of shit." Lila looked up from her coloring. "That's a bad word." "You're right. I apologize." Celeste looked appropriately chastened, and Ethan fell a little bit in love right there. They met again the following week, and the week after that. Coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into dinner at a quiet restaurant where no one recognized Celeste, and Ethan could pretend for a few hours that they were just 2 people getting to know each other. Lila adored Celeste, would ask about her constantly, would light up when Celeste texted Ethan photos of interesting buildings or articles about dinosaur discoveries. And Celeste, brilliant, untouchable Celeste Rowan, would show up at their apartment with takeout and sit on the floor to help Lila build elaborate block towers, her expensive clothes covered in marker stains and crumbs. "This is nice," Celeste said one evening, 3 months into whatever they were doing. They were sitting on Ethan's couch, worn and stained and held together with duct tape in places, while Lila slept in the next room. "Being here, with you, it feels real." "As opposed to what?" "Everything else. My life is all performance, all strategy. But when I'm here, I don't have to be the CEO. I can just be me." Ethan reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I like me." "Yeah?" "Yeah." She kissed him then, soft and tentative and nothing like he'd imagined. Better. When they pulled apart, she was smiling. "I should go. Early meeting tomorrow." Or you could stay. Ethan, just to sleep, nothing else. Just stay. So you don't have to wake up alone in that massive apartment you told me about. Celeste looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. They fell asleep on his terrible couch, Celeste's head on his shoulder, and Ethan thought, this is what I've been missing. But as perfect as it felt in that moment, a small voice in the back of his mind whispered that things this good never lasted. He told the voice to shut up. For once in his life, he wanted to believe in something good. Word count, 4,682 words. I need to continue writing to reach the target of 6,500 to 7,000 words for part 1. Let me continue the story. Well, the first crack appeared 3 weeks later. Ethan had just submitted his proposal for the Riverside Community Center project, a long-shot bid, the kind of thing he'd normally never waste time on because firms like his didn't win contracts that big. But Celeste had looked at his designs one night, spread across his kitchen table while Lila snored softly in the next room and said, "These are brilliant. You should submit them." "It's a waste of time. They'll go with someone established." "So what? Submit them anyway. Make them see what you can do." She'd said it with such certainty, such conviction, that he'd actually believed her. Had stayed up until 2 a.m. polishing his proposal, checking and rechecking every detail, imagining what it would feel like to actually win something this big. Now, sitting in his office, a repurposed bedroom in his apartment that he grandly called his studio, staring at the email on his laptop, he felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Mr. Mercer, we were impressed with your proposal for the Riverside Community Center. We'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss your vision in more detail. Would next Tuesday at 2 p.m. work for your schedule?" He read it 3 times, then picked up his phone and called Celeste. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, I'm in a meeting. Can I call you back?" "They want to meet with me. The Riverside people. They actually want to meet with me." A pause. Then her voice, warm with genuine happiness. "Ethan, that's amazing. I told you they'd see how good you are." "I can't believe it. Celeste, if I actually get this project, it changes everything. It's big enough that people will notice, that other firms will take me seriously. You're going to kill this meeting. I know you are." "I need to go. I need to, prepare, practice, something." She laughed. "Breathe. That's what you need to do. And then show them what you showed me, that you're brilliant and passionate and you understand what community spaces should feel like." "Right. Breathe. I can do that. Call me after. I want to hear everything." "I will. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." "Always, Ethan. Always." He hung up, his heart racing with a mixture of excitement and terror that felt a lot like hope. The meeting went better than he'd dreamed. The committee loved his designs, asked thoughtful questions, nodded at his explanations of accessible spaces and community integration and sustainable materials. By the time he left, he was flying so high he could barely feel his feet on the ground. He picked Lila up from after-school care, swung her around in a circle, and took her out for pizza even though it wasn't in the budget. "Why are we celebrating?" she asked, tomato sauce on her chin. "Because Daddy might have just gotten the biggest project of his career." "Does that mean we can get a new couch? The old one makes weird noises when people sit on it." He laughed. "Maybe. If this works out, maybe we can get a lot of things." That night, after Lila was asleep, Celeste came over. She'd brought wine, expensive wine, the kind with a real cork, and insisted they toast to his success. "It's not official yet," Ethan protested. "It will be. I can feel it." She kissed him, tasting like red wine in confidence. "You're going to change everything, Ethan Mercer. Just wait." They made love on his terrible couch, and for the first time in his adult life, Ethan let himself believe that maybe he deserved good things, that maybe his luck was finally turning. The call came 2 weeks later. "Mr. Mercer, this is David Chen from the Riverside Project Committee. I have some good news and some, well, let's call it complicated news." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Okay. The good news is that we've selected your design. We were unanimous in our decision. Your vision for the space was exactly what we were looking for." That's incredible. Thank you. The complicated part is that we need to disclose something. We received a recommendation letter for your work from Celeste Rowan of Rowan Enterprises. Given her company's significant holdings in the area and her reputation, her endorsement carried considerable weight with our committee. Everything stopped. What? Miss Rowan reached out to our committee chair 3 weeks ago and spoke very highly of your work. She provided references, examples of your designs, and made a compelling case for your firm's capabilities. We want to be transparent about that, given the potential for perceived conflicts of interest. But I want to be clear, your design won on merit. Her recommendation opened the door, but your work is what sealed the deal. Ethan barely heard the rest of the conversation. Something about contracts and timelines and next steps. He said the right things, agreed to the right terms, and hung up feeling like the floor had opened up beneath him. Celeste had recommended him, without telling him, without asking. She'd used her influence, her power, her name, everything he'd told her he wanted to build without, to hand him this opportunity. His phone rang. Celeste. He stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Hey, did you hear? Did they call? She sounded so happy, so proud. Yeah, they called. And? They told me you recommended me, that you vouched for my work to the committee chair. Silence. Celeste, did you use your influence to get me this project? I gave them a recommendation, that's all. You still had to earn it with your designs. That's not... You can't just do that. You can't just call in favors, and it wasn't a favor. I told them the truth, that you're talented and your work is brilliant, and they'd be idiots not to hire you. You should have told me. Would you have let me if I had? No. Exactly. Because you're stubborn and proud and you'd rather struggle forever than accept help from someone who actually believes in you. That's not fair, isn't it? Ethan, I've watched you kill yourself trying to break through, staying up until 3 a.m. on proposals, working yourself to exhaustion, and for what? So you can say you did it alone? So you can keep your pride intact while you and Lila live in an apartment with a couch held together by duct tape? Don't bring Lila into this. She's already in this. She's in everything. And she deserves a father who doesn't martyr himself on the altar of independence. Ethan closed his eyes. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. If I take this project now, everyone will know I only got it because of you, because I'm sleeping with Celeste Rowan and she pulled strings. My work won't matter. My talent won't matter. I'll just be the guy who fucked his way to success. That's exactly what they'll say, and you know it. Another silence, longer this time. So what do you want to do? Celeste's voice was quieter now, hurt. I don't know. I need to think. Ethan, I need to go. I'll call you later. He hung up before she could respond, his hands shaking. Lila appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Daddy, why are you yelling? I wasn't... He stopped, started again. I'm sorry, Bean. I didn't mean to wake you. Are you fighting with Celeste? We're just talking about something complicated. Is it about the big project? How did you... I heard you on the phone earlier. You were happy. She climbed into his lap, small and warm and too perceptive. Are you not happy anymore? Ethan wrapped his arms around her and tried to find an answer that wasn't a lie. I'm confused, Bean. Sometimes good things come in ways that make them feel not so good. That doesn't make sense. I know. She was quiet for a moment, then, Celeste loves you. I can tell. Lila? And you love her. You smile different when she's around, like you're not so tired all the time. It's complicated. Grown-ups always say that when they're being dumb. Despite everything, he laughed. Yeah, maybe we are. She yawned, pressed her face against his shoulder. Can we go back to bed? I have a spelling test tomorrow, and Miss Rodriguez says I need to be rested. Sure, Bean, let's get you back to bed. He tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and went back to the living room to stare at his phone. At the text from Celeste that had come through while he was putting Lila to sleep. I'm sorry. I thought I was helping. I should have asked first. Please call me when you're ready to talk. He wanted to call her, wanted to hear her voice and pretend that everything was fine, but it wasn't fine. Because no matter what David Chen had said about his design winning on merit, Ethan would always know that Celeste's recommendation had opened that door, and everyone else would know it too. He fell asleep on the couch that night, his phone clutched in his hand, and dreamed of buildings that collapsed before they were finished, The contract sat on his kitchen table for 3 days before Ethan could bring himself to sign it. Every time he picked up the pen, he heard Madison's voice in his head. Still doing the small residential stuff? Saw Derek's pitying smile. Felt the weight of every assumption people would make the second they found out about him and Celeste. He'd been avoiding her calls, her texts. The knock on his door last night that he'd pretended not to hear while Lila asked why Celeste wasn't coming in. Because Daddy's being stupid, he'd muttered. I heard that, Lila had said. On the fourth day, Daniel showed up at his apartment with coffee and the kind of concerned expression that meant he'd been talking to Celeste. You look like hell, Daniel said, pushing past Ethan into the apartment. Good morning to you too. It's 2 p.m, and you're still in your pajamas, so yeah, you look like hell. Daniel set the coffee down on the table, saw the unsigned contract, and sighed. You haven't signed it yet. I'm thinking. You're spiraling. There's a difference. Daniel dropped into the chair across from him. Talk to me. What's going on in that overthinking brain of yours? Ethan ran his hands through his hair. He hadn't showered in 2 days. Lila had pointed that out this morning too, with the brutal honesty only a 7-year-old could muster. Everyone's going to think I slept my way into this project. So? So? That's your response? So? Yeah. So what if they think that? You know the truth. Celeste knows the truth. The committee knows the truth. They literally told you your design won on merit. Her recommendation opened the door. And, Ethan, that's how the world works. People help people they believe in. That's called networking, not corruption. It's different when you're sleeping with the person helping you. Daniel leaned back, studied him. Is that what this is really about? Or are you scared that you might actually succeed and then you won't have your failure to hide behind anymore? The words hit like a punch to the gut. That's not, isn't it? You've been playing the struggling artist card for so long, I think you've forgotten how to imagine yourself as anything else. And now someone believes in you enough to put her reputation on the line, and you're punishing her for it. I'm not punishing her. You're not answering her calls. You're not signing a contract that could change your life. You're sitting here in your pajamas at 2 p.m. feeling sorry for yourself. What would you call it? Ethan wanted to argue, wanted to defend himself. But Daniel had known him since college, had watched him sabotage good things before. And the worst part was that he was right. I'm scared, Ethan said quietly. Of what? Of screwing this up, of proving everyone right, that I'm not good enough, that I only got here because of her, of losing Celeste when she realizes I'm just a guy who can barely keep his head above water. Man, you really don't see it, do you? See what? That woman is in love with you, not because you're successful or because you have your shit together. She's in love with you because you're real, because you see her as a person instead of a trophy, because when she's with you, she gets to just be Celeste instead of Celeste Rowan, CEO. Daniel picked up the contract, held it out. Sign the damn thing, build your community center, and call your girlfriend before she gives up on your stubborn ass. Ethan took the contract, stared at the signature line. What if I fail? Then you fail. But at least you'll fail trying instead of sitting here drowning in what-ifs. After Daniel left, Ethan sat there for another hour. Then he picked up the pen and signed his name. The relief was immediate and terrifying. He picked up his phone, stared at Celeste's contact photo, a candid shot he'd taken of her laughing at one of Lila's jokes, her face open and unguarded, and hit call before he could talk himself out of it. She answered on the first ring. Ethan? I signed the contract. Silence. Then, okay. And I'm sorry for avoiding you, for being an asshole, for... He stopped, started again. I'm scared, Celeste. I'm scared of failing. I'm scared of people thinking I'm using you. I'm scared that you're going to wake up one day and realize you can do so much better than a guy who lives in a shitty apartment with a duct-taped couch. Are you done? What? Are you done listing all the ways you think you're not good enough? Because I'd like to say something. Yeah, I'm done. Good. First, you're not using me. I recommended you because you're talented, not because we're together. Second, I don't give a damn about your apartment or your couch. I care about you and Lila, and the way you both make me feel like I'm more than just my job title. Her voice cracked slightly. And third, you hurt me by shutting me out. By assuming the worst, by not trusting that I might actually know what I'm doing when I put my name behind someone's work. I know. I'm sorry. I need you to understand something. I don't do anything halfway. Not my work, not my relationships, not my life. So if we're going to do this, really do this, I need you to trust me. Even when you're scared, even when it's hard, can you do that? Ethan closed his eyes. I can try. That's all I'm asking. A pause. Can I come over? Please. She arrived 20 minutes later, still in her work clothes, a sharp suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent. And the second he opened the door, she was in his arms. I missed you, she said against his shoulder. I missed you too. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing and kiss me. He did, and for a few perfect moments, everything else fell away. Lila's voice cut through the haze. Does this mean you're not fighting anymore? They broke apart. Celeste wiped at her eyes, laughing. No, sweetheart, we're not fighting anymore. Good, because Daddy's been really grumpy and I'm tired of it. Lila, Ethan started. It's true. You made burnt eggs 3 times this week, and you only do that when you're sad. Celeste bit back a smile. Burnt eggs, huh? Really burnt, like black. Okay, new rule, Ethan said. No more commentary on my cooking from the peanut gallery. What's a peanut gallery? You're the peanut gallery. Lila grinned, clearly pleased with herself. Then she turned to Celeste. Are you staying for dinner? I can help make sure Daddy doesn't burn anything. I'd love to stay. They ordered Thai food instead. Ethan's cooking skills were not up to the task of redemption, and spent the evening on the floor of the living room, Lila between them, building an elaborate city out of blocks, while Celeste asked detailed questions about urban planning that made Lila light up with the kind of joy only kids talking about their obsessions could achieve. After Lila went to bed, Ethan and Celeste stayed on the floor, their backs against the couch, shoulders touching. I meant what I said, Celeste said quietly, about not doing things halfway. I know. I'm falling in love with you, Ethan, with both of you, and that terrifies me because I've never let anyone this close before. But I'm choosing it anyway. I'm choosing you. He turned to look at her, saw the vulnerability in her eyes, the fear she was trying so hard to hide. I'm falling in love with you too. Have been since that night on the balcony when you were brave enough to cry in front of a stranger. I wasn't brave. I was broken. Same thing, sometimes. She kissed him then, soft and slow, and when they finally pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll talk to me when you're scared, that you won't shut me out, that we'll figure things out together instead of you trying to protect me from your problems. I promise. If you promise me the same thing. Deal. They fell asleep on the couch again, wrapped around each other, and Ethan thought that maybe Daniel was right. Maybe he had been hiding behind his failure. Maybe it was time to let himself succeed. And maybe, just maybe, he deserved the woman sleeping in his arms. The first design meeting for the Riverside Community Center happened 2 weeks later, and Ethan walked in feeling like an imposter in his own success. The committee was friendly, professional. They asked good questions, challenged his ideas in ways that made the design better. But he couldn't shake the feeling that they were all thinking it. He's only here because of Celeste Rowan. Mr. Mercer, we'd like to discuss the timeline, David Chen said, pulling up a project schedule. We're looking at an 18-month build with community input sessions every quarter. Does that work with your availability? Absolutely. I want this to be a true community project. Their voices should shape the space. Excellent. We were hoping you'd say that. David smiled. Ms. Rowan spoke very highly of your commitment to accessible design. We're excited to see that in action. There it was. The reminder. The reference that made Ethan's stomach clench. He got through the rest of the meeting on autopilot, nodding at the right times, taking notes he'd barely remember later. When it was finally over, he walked out of the building and stood on the sidewalk, trying to breathe through the tightness in his chest. His phone buzzed. Celeste. How did it go? He stared at the message, his thumb hovering over the keyboard. Part of him wanted to tell her the truth, that every mention of her name felt like proof that he didn't earn this, but he'd promised to talk to her, to trust her. Good. They loved the timeline. Want to grab lunch? Can't. Board meeting until 3. Dinner tonight? I'll cook. You cook? I order very expensive takeout and plate it nicely. Close enough. Despite everything, he smiled. Deal. I'll bring wine. Bring Lila, too. I miss her. She'll be thrilled. Fair warning, she's going to ask you about pterodactyls. She's on a flying reptile kick. I will prepare accordingly. He pocketed his phone and headed home, feeling marginally better. Maybe this would be okay. Maybe people would talk, but as long as he did good work, as long as the community center turned out the way he envisioned it, none of that would matter. He believed that for almost 3 whole weeks. Then the article hit. Ethan was at a coffee shop working on revisions to the community center design when Daniel called. Have you seen it? Seen what? The article, in the Tribune, about you and Celeste. Ethan's blood went cold. What article? I'm sending you the link. Don't read it in public. You're going to want to throw your phone. The link came through. Ethan clicked it, his heart pounding. Power, privilege, and pillow talk. How Celeste Rowan's new romance landed an unknown architect, a $1 million contract. The byline belonged to Marcus Webb, a journalist known for hit pieces on the wealthy and connected, the kind of guy who made a career out of tearing successful people down. Ethan's hands shook as he read. Celeste Rowan, the billionaire CEO of Rowan Enterprises, has built her empire on claims of meritocracy and fair dealing. But a recent contract awarded to architect Ethan Mercer raises questions about whether Rowan's personal relationships influence her professional recommendations. Mercer, a struggling architect with a small residential portfolio and no major commercial projects to his name, was awarded the Riverside Community Center contract, a $1.2 million project, after Rowan personally recommended his work to the selection committee. Sources close to the couple confirm that Rowan and Mercer have been romantically involved for several months. While the committee insists Mercer's design won on merit, the optics raise concerns about conflicts of interest and the role of personal connections in public contracts. Critics argue that Rowan's recommendation gave Mercer an unfair advantage over more experienced firms. This is exactly the kind of nepotism that keeps talented architects from getting opportunities, said Martin Vasquez, a local architect whose firm submitted a competing proposal. If you don't have the right connections or the right girlfriend, you don't stand a chance. The article went on and on, detailing Ethan's financial struggles, his lack of major projects, his single father status, making him sound like a charity case, making Celeste sound like a woman who couldn't separate her personal life from her professional judgment. By the time he finished reading, his vision was blurry with rage. His phone rang. Celeste. I'm so sorry, she said immediately. I just saw it. My PR team is already working on a response. A response? Celeste, they're calling this nepotism. They're saying I slept my way into this contract. They're wrong. Are they? I wouldn't have even been on that committee's radar if you hadn't recommended me. You wouldn't have been on their radar because the system is rigged against people like you. People without connections or money or famous last names. I leveled the playing field. That's not nepotism. That's justice. That's not how people are going to see it. I don't care how people see it. I care about the truth. And the truth is that you're brilliant and you deserve this opportunity, and I'd recommend you again in a heartbeat. My phone has been ringing nonstop. Reporters, other architects. Someone left a voicemail calling me a gold-digging failure. Do you understand what this is doing to my reputation, to my career? So what do you want me to do? Apologize for believing in you? Take back my recommendation? Pretend we're not together so people will respect your work? I don't know. I can't do this right now. Ethan. He hung up, immediately regretted it, but his phone was already ringing again, another reporter, and he turned it off entirely. When he got home, Lila was at the kitchen table doing homework, his sister Rachel sitting across from her. I saw the article, Rachel said quietly. Great. So the whole world knows I'm a failure who needed his girlfriend to hand him a job. That's not what it said. That's exactly what it said. Rachel stood up, walked over to him. Listen to me. You are not a failure. You are a talented architect who got screwed by a system that only rewards people with money and connections. Celeste opened a door. You walked through it. That's not something to be ashamed of. Everyone thinks I'm using her. Everyone is always going to think something. You can't live your life based on what other people think. She put her hand on his shoulder. But you need to figure out what you're going to do. Because this article, it's just the beginning. If you and Celeste stay together, this is going to keep happening. People are going to keep questioning your success, keep assuming you're riding her coattails. Are you strong enough to handle that? Ethan looked at Lila, who was pretending to focus on her math homework but was clearly listening to every word. I don't know. Then you need to figure it out. Because that little girl deserves a dad who doesn't fall apart every time things get hard. And Celeste deserves a partner who's willing to fight for her instead of running away when the world gets ugly. Rachel left. Ethan sat down next to Lila, who immediately abandoned her homework to climb into his lap. Are people being mean to you? She asked. Yeah, Bean, they are. Because of Celeste? Because of me. Because I'm not good enough for her. And everyone knows it. Lila pulled back, looked at him with those serious eyes that were too old for her face. That's stupid. You're the best dad ever. And you make really cool buildings. Celeste knows that. Why do you care what other people think? Because other people decide if I get more work. If I can keep doing what I love. If I can take care of you. We're fine. We have food and a house and each other. That's all we need. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. You're making it complicated. She hugged him tight. I like Celeste. She's nice and she knows about dinosaurs and she makes you smile. Don't let the mean people take that away. Ethan held his daughter and wondered when she'd gotten so wise and when he'd become so afraid. His phone, which he'd turned back on, buzzed with a text. Celeste, I know you're angry. I know this is a mess, but I'm not sorry for recommending you, and I'm not going to apologize for being with you. Take the time you need to process this, but please don't shut me out. We're stronger together than we are apart. He stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, I need a few days. To think. To figure out what to do next. I'm not running. I'm just scared. I know. I'm scared too. But I'm here when you're ready. The next few days were brutal. More articles came out, each one worse than the last. Interviews with competing architects calling the contract process corrupt. Opinion pieces about the dangers of mixing business with pleasure. A particularly vicious blog post that dug into Ethan's financial history and painted him as a desperate man willing to do anything for success. His email inbox was flooded with angry messages. Supportive ones, too, from people who believed in what Celeste had done. But the negative ones drowned them out. The Riverside Committee called an emergency meeting. David Chen looked tired when Ethan arrived. We need to discuss the situation, David said. The press attention has raised concerns among some of our board members. About my qualifications? About the perception of impropriety. We stand by our decision. Your design was the best. But we're getting pressure to review the selection process, to make sure everything was above board. It was. You know it was. I do, but we need to document that, prove it, which means we're going to have to release the full scoring sheets, the committee notes, everything. Make it transparent. Fine, do it. I have nothing to hide. David nodded. I believe you, but I need to ask, is your relationship with Miss Rowan going to continue to be a problem? Because if there are more articles, more scandals, it could jeopardize the project. Our funding comes from public sources. We can't afford to look corrupt. Ethan felt something crack inside him. Are you asking me to break up with her? I'm asking you to consider the optics, to think about what's best for the project. The project I designed, that I earned, that you earned with help from someone you're romantically involved with. I'm not saying it's fair, Ethan. I'm saying it's reality. He left the meeting feeling like he'd been punched in the gut. Drove home in a daze, found Celeste sitting on his apartment steps, still in her work clothes, her eyes red. I've been calling you, she said. I turned my phone off, too many reporters. My board called an emergency session. They're questioning my judgment, saying I let personal feelings compromise my professional integrity. She laughed, but it sounded broken. 20 years building this company, and one recommendation is making them doubt me. Ethan sat down next to her on the steps. The Riverside Committee wants me to consider the optics, to think about what's best for the project. What does that mean? It means they want me to choose between you and this opportunity. Celeste turned to look at him, her face pale. And what are you going to choose? He wanted to say her, Wanted to be the kind of man who chose love over everything else. But the words stuck in his throat because he could see the whole future unspooling in front of him. More articles, more scandals, more people questioning whether he earned anything he achieved. And worst of all, Lila getting dragged into it. His daughter's life becoming tabloid fodder because her father fell in love with the wrong woman. I don't know, he said honestly. Something died in Celeste's eyes. Right, of course. Celeste, no, I get it. Your career matters, your reputation matters, and I'm the liability ruining both. She stood up, brushed off her suit. I should go. Don't, please. Let's talk about this. What's there to talk about? You're not choosing me. You're choosing the safe option, the one where you don't have to risk anything. Her voice cracked. I thought you were different. I thought you saw me as more than just a name or a connection, but I'm just another problem you need to solve, aren't I? That's not fair, isn't it? I put my reputation on the line for you. I stood up to my board, defended you to every reporter who called, and you can't even say you're choosing me over some hypothetical perfect career that doesn't exist. I have Lila to think about. Don't use your daughter as an excuse. This is about you being afraid, about you not believing you're good enough to succeed without hiding behind your struggles. The words hit home because they were true, and because she was the only person who had ever seen through him that clearly. I'm sorry, he said. Yeah, me too. She walked away, got into her car, a sleek black thing that probably cost more than his entire year's salary, and drove off without looking back. Ethan sat on the steps until it got dark, until Lila came outside to tell him dinner was ready, until he couldn't pretend anymore that he hadn't just made the biggest mistake of his life. But he'd made his choice, and now he had to live with it, even if it was killing him. Word count, 4,141 words. Let me continue to reach the target. The next week passed in a fog of regret and stubborn pride fighting for dominance in Ethan's chest. He threw himself into the community center designs, working 16-hour days, barely sleeping. Lila noticed, of course, asked why Celeste didn't come over anymore, why Daddy looked sad all the time. We're taking a break, Ethan said, hating himself for the lie. That's stupid, Lila said, echoing her earlier wisdom. You're being stupid again. He couldn't argue with that. The Riverside Committee released their documentation, scoring sheets, notes, everything, proving that Ethan's design had scored highest across all metrics before Celeste's recommendation even reached them. The articles quieted down. Some publications even ran corrections, acknowledging that the initial reporting had been misleading, but the damage was done. Ethan's phone rang one evening. Marcus Vasquez, the architect who'd complained in the original article. I owe you an apology, Vasquez said without preamble. I reviewed the committee documentation. Your design was better than mine. Significantly better. I was angry about losing, and I said things I shouldn't have. Okay, Ethan said, too tired to feel vindicated. For what it's worth, breaking up with Rowan over this was probably a mistake. The story was going to die regardless. The documentation proved you earned it. You didn't have to sacrifice your relationship. After Vasquez hung up, Ethan sat in the dark and let that truth sink in. He'd walked away from Celeste to protect his reputation, and it hadn't even mattered. The truth had come out anyway. All he'd done was prove her right, that he was too afraid to fight for what mattered. Daniel showed up the next morning, took one look at Ethan, and shook his head. You look like death. Thanks. Have you called her? No. Why the hell not? Because I screwed up. Because I chose my pride over her and now she probably hates me. So grovel, apologize, beg her to take you back. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You love her. She loves you. Everything else is just noise. Daniel grabbed Ethan's phone, thrust it at him. Call her, now, before you lose her for good. Ethan stared at the phone, then at Daniel. What if she won't forgive me? Then at least you tried, but sitting here wallowing in self-pity, that's not trying, that's quitting. So Ethan called and got her voicemail. Called again, same thing. Sent a text that went unanswered. After 3 days of silence, he realized she really might be done with him. The thought made him physically sick. He was picking Lila up from school when he saw the news van. Then another. A whole cluster of reporters camped outside Rowan Enterprises headquarters. His stomach dropped. Something was wrong. He pulled over, checked his phone. A news alert made his blood run cold. Ethan read the article 3 times, each pass making his chest tighter. The board had been planning this for weeks, apparently, using the scandal as leverage to push Celeste out. Several board members quoted anonymously, talking about her lack of judgment, her inability to separate company without the constant fight. Without you. Her voice cracked. I'm saying I love you, Ethan, but I don't think love is enough anymore. The line went dead. Ethan stood there in the middle of the construction site, surrounded by workers and machinery and the skeleton of the building he'd designed, and felt his world shatter. Daniel found him an hour later, still standing in the same spot, staring at nothing. She called, Ethan said. And? And she's done. She loves me, but she's done. Did she say that, those exact words? She said she needs space, that she can't trust me, that love isn't enough. He looked at Daniel, his eyes burning. How do I fix this? I don't know if you can, man. Not right now. Maybe not ever. Daniel put a hand on his shoulder. Sometimes the damage is too deep. Sometimes the best thing you can do is respect her wishes and let her go. I can't lose her. You might not have his choice. That night, Lila found him sitting in the dark, staring at his phone. Did you talk to Celeste? She asked, climbing into his lap even though she was getting too big for it. Yeah, Bean. Is she coming back? I don't think so. Why not? Because I hurt her, and sometimes when you hurt people, they don't forgive you. Lila was quiet for a moment. Then, I forgive you when you hurt me. Like when you burned my toast or when you forgot to pick me up from Sarah's birthday party. This is different. How? Because... He stopped, trying to find words a 7-year-old would understand. Because what I did was bigger than burned toast. I let her down when she needed me most. And now she doesn't believe I'll be there for her. So show her. She won't talk to me. Then show her anyway. You always say actions matter more than words. So do actions. Out of the mouths of babes. Ethan held his daughter and thought about what she'd said. About actions mattering more than words. About showing up even when the other person couldn't see you. An idea started to form. Probably a terrible idea. Probably something that would blow up in his face. But it was all he had. The next morning, he called David Chen. I need to make some changes to the community center design, Ethan said. What kind of changes? I want to add a dedication to someone who believed in community spaces and the power of giving people opportunities they wouldn't otherwise have. Who? Celeste Rowan. David was quiet for a moment. That's going to bring up the whole scandal again. Are you sure you want to do that? I'm sure. This building exists because she saw potential in me. Because she refused to let talent get buried by lack of connections. That deserves recognition, no matter what anyone thinks about our relationship. Okay. Send me the language you want to use. We'll bring it to the committee. The committee approved it, unanimously. Several members said it was about time someone publicly acknowledged what Celeste had actually done. Opened doors instead of closing them, championed merit over politics, used her power to lift others up instead of keeping them down. But when Ethan tried to tell Celeste about the dedication, she didn't answer his calls, didn't respond to his texts. So he did what Lila suggested. He showed her through actions. He gave interviews about her integrity, her vision, her commitment to sustainable development, and community-focused design. He spoke at a forum about gender equity in business and talked about watching the board destroy her for the crime of being both successful and human. He used every platform he had to tell the truth about who she was and what she'd done. And he worked. Poured everything into the community center, determined to create something worthy of her belief in him. Months passed. The building took shape. The scandal faded from the headlines, replaced by new outrages and controversies. Celeste's name appeared in the news occasionally. She'd been offered positions at 3 different companies, turned them all down, started a consulting firm focused on sustainable urban development, gave a TED Talk about the cost of success for women in male-dominated industries that went viral. But she never reached out to Ethan, never acknowledged his interviews or his public defense, or the dedication he'd added to the building she'd never see. She's moved on, Rachel said one evening, watching Ethan stare at his phone like he could will it to ring. You need to accept that. I can't. You don't have a choice. She's made it clear she doesn't want contact. Respect that. I'm not harassing her. I'm just waiting for her to change her mind. But what if she doesn't? What if this is it? Ethan didn't have an answer for that. The community center was scheduled to open in 6 months. Ethan walked through the half-finished building almost daily, seeing Celeste in every choice he'd made. The wide entrances she'd suggested, the reading nooks she'd sketched out one night at his apartment, the rooftop garden she'd insisted would make the space feel alive. She was everywhere in this building, in every beam and window and carefully planned sightline, and she'd never see it. He was standing in what would become the main community room when his phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Mercer, this is Jennifer Hale from the City Planning Commission. I'm calling about the Riverside Community Center. His stomach dropped. Is there a problem? No, actually, the opposite. We've been following the project's progress, and we're extremely impressed. Your design has generated significant interest in community-focused architecture. We'd like to discuss potential future projects with you. What? Several neighborhood associations have reached out asking about similar spaces. We think you'd be perfect to design them. Would you be interested in meeting to discuss this? Ethan's mind reeled. This was what he'd always wanted. Recognition, opportunities, a chance to build a real career doing meaningful work. And all he could think was, I wish I could tell Celeste. Mr. Mercer? Yes. Sorry. Yes, I'd be very interested. They scheduled a meeting. Ethan hung up and stood there in the empty room, success finally within reach, and felt completely hollow. Because none of it meant anything without her. He called Daniel. The city wants to hire me for more projects. That's incredible. This is exactly what you've been working toward. Yeah. You don't sound excited. I keep thinking about how none of this would exist without her. How she saw something in me that nobody else did. And now she's gone, and I'm succeeding, and it feels wrong. Like I'm benefiting from something that cost her everything. So what are you going to do? I don't know. Keep working, I guess. Keep trying to build things that matter. Keep hoping that somehow, someday, she'll see that I'm not running anymore. That's all you can do, man. But it didn't feel like enough. The months continued to crawl forward. Lila asked about Celeste less frequently, seemed to accept that she was gone. Started second grade, made new friends, adapted the way kids do. Ethan tried to do the same. Took on the new city projects, hired 2 junior architects to help handle the workload. Moved to a bigger apartment with a couch that didn't make weird noises. His career was taking off. Everything he'd dreamed of was finally happening. And every single day, he missed her so much it felt like drowning. He was at the community center 3 months before opening. The building was nearly complete now, just finishing touches left, when he saw her. Celeste stood at the entrance, looking up at the building, her expression unreadable. Ethan's heart stopped, then restarted at triple speed. He walked toward her slowly, afraid that if he moved too fast, she'd disappear. Hi, he said when he got close enough. She turned, looked at him. Hi. They stood there in awkward silence for a moment. I didn't know you were coming, Ethan said. I didn't know I was coming either. I was in the neighborhood, and I saw the building, and She stopped. It's beautiful, Ethan. Even half finished, it's beautiful. Thank you. I read about the city commissioning more projects from you. Congratulations. Feels empty without you. Celeste's expression softened. Don't do that. Do what? Make me responsible for your happiness. That's not fair to either of us. I'm not. I miss you. Every day. Every hour. And I know I don't have the right to say that, but it's true. I miss you too. Her voice broke. But that doesn't change what happened. Doesn't change the fact that you walked away when I needed you. I know. And I hate myself for it. But I'm not that person anymore, Celeste. I learned. I grew. And if you gave me another chance, I'd spend the rest of my life proving that I won't run again. I want to believe you. So believe me. It's not that simple. Why not? She turned to face him fully. Because I rebuilt myself, Ethan. After the board pushed me out, after you left, after everything fell apart, I had to rebuild from scratch. Figure out who I was without the company, without you. And that person is stronger now. More careful. She doesn't let people in easily because she knows how much it costs when they leave. I'm not going to leave. You already did once. The words hung between them like an accusation and a plea at the same time. You're right. Ethan said. I did. I was scared and proud and stupid, and I ran. But I came back. Maybe too late, maybe not in the way you needed, but I came back. I fought for you publicly. I've spent the last year trying to be worthy of what you saw in me, and I'll spend the next 10 years doing the same if that's what it takes. Celeste's eyes filled with tears. I don't know if I can do this again, risk this again. Then don't. Not yet. Just come to the opening. In 3 months. See what we built. What you made possible. He took a breath. After that, if you still want nothing to do with me, I'll respect it. I'll stop hoping. But give me this one chance to show you that everything you believed about me was real. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, I'll come to the opening. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm not promising anything beyond showing up. That's all I'm asking. She turned back to the building, studying it. The dedication, I heard about it. Did you? My former assistant sent me the press release, in recognition of Celeste Rowan, whose vision and courage opened doors that others would have left closed. It's true. It's generous. It's honest. He moved to stand beside her. This building exists because you believed in me, because you saw past the struggling architect with the duct-taped couch to the person who actually had something to offer. That deserves recognition. Even though it cost me my career, you didn't lose your career. You lost a company run by cowards. There's a difference. She almost smiled. When did you get so wise? About 6 months after I lost you and realized what an idiot I'd been. This time she did smile. Small, but real. I should go. Okay? She started to walk away, stopped, turned back. Lila, how is she? She's good, misses you, asks about you sometimes. Tell her I miss her too. Why don't you tell her yourself? Come to dinner, just as friends. Let her see you. Celeste hesitated. I don't think that's a good idea. She deserves a goodbye if you're really done with us. Don't punish her for my mistakes. That hit home. Ethan saw it in the way her shoulders stiffened, the way her eyes went bright. That's not fair, she said. I know, but it's true. She studied him. One dinner? As friends. For Lila. For Lila. When? Saturday? I'll cook. Actual cooking, not takeout. I've gotten better. I'll believe that when I see it. She walked away before he could respond, but Ethan stood there feeling something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. Maybe it was false hope. Maybe it would blow up in his face. But Lila was right. Actions mattered more than words. And Celeste had agreed to dinner. It was a start. He just had to make sure he didn't screw it up again. Saturday arrived too fast and not fast enough. Ethan spent 3 hours grocery shopping, second-guessing every ingredient. Lila watched him debate between 2 different types of pasta with the kind of patient amusement usually reserved for watching someone lose their mind. It's just dinner, Daddy. It's not just dinner, it's... He stopped himself. Yeah, you're right. It's just dinner. With Celeste, who you love and who you're trying to win back even though you said you're just friends. When did you get so observant? I'm 8 now. I notice things? She grabbed a box of the penny. Get this one. Celeste likes ridged pasta. She said it holds sauce better. How do you remember that? Because I actually listen when people talk. She said it matter-of-factly, without judgment, which somehow made it worse. They got home and Ethan started cooking. Chicken piccata, something he'd practiced twice this week to make sure he wouldn't screw it up. Lila set the table with a level of care that made his chest tight. She even put out the nice plates, the ones they only used for special occasions. Bean, we're just having a friend over. A friend you're in love with who hasn't been here in forever because you were being dumb. She adjusted a fork. This is special. He couldn't argue with that. Celeste arrived exactly on time, holding a bottle of wine that probably cost more than Ethan's weekly grocery budget and a book about prehistoric marine reptiles. For Lila, she said, handing it to him. I heard she was expanding beyond dinosaurs. Before Ethan could respond, Lila came running from her room and stopped dead when she saw Celeste. For a second, Ethan worried she'd be shy, that too much time had passed. Then Lila launched herself at Celeste with enough force to make her stumble. You came. Daddy said you were coming, but I didn't know if you really would. Celeste caught her, held her tight, and Ethan saw tears in her eyes. Of course I came. I missed you. I missed you too, so much. Did you know that mosasaurs had double-hinged jaws? They could swallow prey whole, even stuff bigger than their heads. I did not know that. That's terrifying and amazing. They stood there in the doorway, Lila chattering about marine reptiles while Celeste listened with the kind of attention that said she genuinely missed this, and Ethan felt something crack open in his chest. Dinner was less awkward than he'd feared. Lila dominated the conversation, filling Celeste in on everything she'd missed: school, her new friend Marcus who collected rocks, the fact that she'd learned to ride a bike without training wheels, her Halloween costume plans even though it was only July. Celeste listened to all of it, asked questions, laughed at Lila's jokes, but she was careful not to look at Ethan too long, careful to keep the conversation light, safe. After dinner, Lila insisted Celeste help with her marine reptile research project, which involved sprawling across the living room floor with books and sketches and enough enthusiasm to power a small city. Ethan cleaned up in the kitchen, giving them space, listening to their laughter drift through the apartment. It felt like coming home after being lost for a long time. It felt like torture knowing this might be the last time. "Daddy, can Celeste read me a bedtime story?" Lila called. "If she wants to," Ethan called back. "I'd love to," Celeste said. 30 minutes later, Ethan stood in Lila's doorway watching Celeste read about plesiosaurs, his daughter tucked against her side, both of them absorbed in the story. When Lila's eyes started to droop, Celeste closed the book gently. "Time for sleep, sweetheart." "Will you come back?" Lila asked, her voice small. "Or is this goodbye again?" Celeste's face crumpled. "I don't know, Lila. It's complicated. That's what grown-ups say when they're scared." Lila sat up, looked at Celeste with those two old eyes. "I know Daddy hurt you. He told me. And I know you're still sad about it, but he's different now. He doesn't do the scared face as much. And he talks about you like you're the best thing that ever happened to him." "Lila." Ethan started from the doorway. "It's true. You do." She turned back to Celeste. "And you talk about him the same way. I can tell. So I don't understand why you're not together if you love each other." "Because love isn't always enough," Celeste said softly. "Sometimes people hurt each other too badly to fix it. But you haven't even tried." "Not really. You just ran away from each other and stayed away, and that's dumb." Lila crossed her arms. "You're both being dumb." Despite everything, Ethan almost laughed. Celeste did laugh, wiping at her eyes. "You're very wise for 8, Celeste said. "I know, everyone says that." Lila yawned. "Will you at least think about it? About not being dumb?" "I'll think about it." "Good." Lila settled back into her pillow. "Night, Celeste. I love you." Celeste's breath caught. "I love you too, sweetheart." She kissed Lila's forehead, then stood and walked past Ethan into the living room. He followed, his heart pounding. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't tell her to say any of that." "I know you didn't. That was all her." Celeste grabbed her purse, not looking at him. "I should go." "Celeste, wait. I can't do this, Ethan. Being here, seeing you both, remembering what we had, it's too hard." "So what do we do? Just keep avoiding each other? Keep pretending we don't matter?" "I don't know." She turned to face him, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know what to do because I love you, and I'm still so angry at you, and I don't know how to make those two things exist in the same space. So let's figure it out, together, like we should have done a year ago." "You keep saying that, but what does it actually mean? How do we figure it out?" Ethan took a breath. "Therapy, real conversation, time. I'll do whatever it takes. Move at whatever pace you need. Just don't walk away from this without giving us a real chance." "We had a chance. You walked away. I made a mistake. A terrible, cowardly mistake. And I've spent every day since then trying to be better. To be the person you saw in me." He moved closer, not touching her, but close enough to see the pain in her eyes. "I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I hurt you and broke your trust. But I'm asking anyway. Because what we had was real and rare and worth fighting for." Celeste closed her eyes. "I'm so tired of fighting." "Then don't fight. Just try. Just give us 6 months. If it doesn't work, if I let you down again, I'll walk away and never bother you again. But if it does work, if we can get back even a fraction of what we had, wouldn't that be worth the risk?" She looked at him for a long moment. I need time to think. Okay. And I need you to understand something. If we do this, if I agree to try, and you run again, there won't be a third chance. I won't survive another heartbreak from you. I won't run, I swear. You swore before, implicitly. Every time you said you loved me, you were swearing you'd stay, and you didn't. The words were a knife, clean and sharp. You're right. My promises don't mean much right now, so I won't make promises. I'll just show up every day until you believe me again. Celeste wiped her eyes. I'm going to the opening. That hasn't changed, but I need space until then. Can you give me that? Whatever you need. She nodded, started toward the door, then stopped. The chicken was good. You really have gotten better at cooking. I've gotten better at a lot of things. I hope so, Ethan. I really hope so. She left. Ethan stood in his living room, smelling her perfume still lingering in the air, and let himself hope that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end. The next 3 months were the longest of Ethan's life. He honored Celeste's request for space. Didn't call unless it was about Lila, didn't show up at her office, didn't manufacture reasons to see her. But he thought about her constantly, wondered if she was thinking about him, wondered if she'd change her mind about the opening. The community center came together beautifully. The dedication plaque was installed in the main lobby, bronze letters on white marble, Celeste's name prominent and proud. Every time Ethan saw it, he felt the weight of everything she'd sacrificed. Lila asked about her occasionally. Ethan told the truth, that Celeste needed time, that grown-up relationships were complicated, that they just had to wait and see. But she's coming to the opening, right? Lila asked 2 weeks before the event. She said she would. Good, because I made her something, and I want to give it to her. What did you make? It's a surprise. You'll see. The opening was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon. The mayor would be there, the city council, local reporters, community members. It was a big deal. Ethan's first major completed project, the proof that he could deliver on a large scale. But all he cared about was whether Celeste would show up. Daniel arrived early to help with setup. You're vibrating with anxiety. It's making me nervous. What if she doesn't come? Then she doesn't come, and you survive it and move on. I don't want to move on. I know, man, but you might have to. Daniel squeezed his shoulder. For what it's worth, I think she'll come. She's not the kind of person who breaks promises, especially not to you. She doesn't owe me anything. Maybe not. But she owes it to herself to see what she made possible. People started arriving around noon, community members who'd participated in the design process, excited to see the finished space, local business owners, families with kids who ran through the building with the kind of joy that made every late night and every moment of doubt worth it. The mayor gave a speech about community investment and urban renewal. David Chen talked about the selection process and the vision Ethan had brought to the project. Several community members spoke about what the space would mean to them. And through it all, Ethan kept scanning the crowd for Celeste. She wasn't there. 1 hour passed. Then 2. The formal program ended, people started filtering through the building, and still no Celeste. Ethan felt his hope crumbling. She'd changed her mind, decided it wasn't worth the risk of seeing him again. He couldn't blame her, but it hurt like hell anyway. He was standing in the main community room, watching kids play in the reading nook Celeste had designed, when Lila tugged on his sleeve. She's here, Lila whispered. Ethan turned, and there she was. Celeste stood in the doorway, looking at the space with an expression he couldn't quite read. She'd dressed simply, jeans and a soft sweater, her hair down, like she didn't want to draw attention. But people noticed anyway. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Phones came out. The CEO who'd been pushed out, showing up at the project that had started the whole scandal. Ethan started toward her, but Lila got there first. You came! Lila threw her arms around Celeste's waist. I said I would. Celeste hugged her back, her eyes meeting Ethan's over Lila's head. Come see. I want to show you everything. Daddy built the reading nook exactly like you drew it, and there's a rooftop garden, and the dedication has your name on it. Lila dragged Celeste through the building, pointing out features and explaining design choices with the confidence of someone who'd absorbed every conversation Ethan had ever had about the project. Celeste followed, asking questions, running her hands over surfaces, taking it all in. Other people approached her, community members wanting to thank her for making the project possible, Former colleagues who'd left Rowan Enterprises after she was forced out, supporters who'd followed the story. She handled it all with grace, but Ethan could see the strain around her eyes. After about an hour, he found her alone on the rooftop garden, looking out at the city skyline. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. "It's beautiful, Ethan. Better than I imagined. Because you imagined it with me. All those late nights, sketching ideas, talking about what community spaces should feel like. This is as much yours as it is mine. I just offered suggestions. You offered vision and courage, and the belief that someone like me could create something like this." He moved to stand beside her. "The dedication isn't enough. Your name should be on the design too. No, this is your achievement, your talent. I just opened a door. You did more than that. You changed my life. You made me believe I deserved good things. And even though everything went to hell, even though I failed you when it mattered most, I don't regret a single moment we had together." Celeste turned to look at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "I don't regret it either. Even the pain, even the board forcing me out. Because you were right. I didn't lose my career. I lost a company run by people who never valued me as much as they valued their own power. And I'm building something better now, something that's actually mine. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you too." She gestured to the building around them. "This is remarkable, Ethan. You should be celebrating, not worried about whether I'm going to forgive you." "I can do both." She almost smiled. "Have you been to therapy? Like you said you would?" "Every Tuesday for the last 3 months. Turns out I have some issues with self-worth and fear of success that I should probably work on. Join the club." "Are you in therapy too?" "Started right after the board meeting. My therapist says I have control issues and a tendency to conflate my professional identity with my personal worth." She shrugged. "We're working on it." They stood there in silence for a moment, just being together without the weight of expectation or hurt. "I've been thinking about what you said," Celeste said finally. "About trying again. About giving us 6 months." Ethan's heart stopped. And I'm terrified because what if we try and it doesn't work? What if I let you in again and you hurt me again? What if I'm not strong enough to survive that? What if we try and it does work? What if we're better this time? What if we learn from our mistakes and we build something real? That's what I'm afraid of too, that it will work, that I'll be happy, and then something will happen to take it away. She turned to face him fully. "I lost my company, my reputation, my sense of who I was, and I survived it. But losing you was harder than all of that combined. I don't know if I can risk that kind of pain again, so we don't risk it. We earn it. We build trust slowly. We communicate instead of running. We choose each other every day instead of assuming love is enough to carry us through." He took a breath. "And if it doesn't work, at least we'll know we tried. Really tried. Not like before." Celeste studied his face, looking for something. "What changed? Between when you walked away and now?" "I did. I realized that fear was making all my decisions. Fear of failure, fear of not being good enough, fear of people thinking I didn't deserve success. And that fear cost me everything that mattered." He gestured to the building around them. "This project, these opportunities, they're great. But they mean nothing without you. Without Lila looking at me like I'm not a complete disaster. Without knowing that I'm building a life worth living instead of just surviving. You're doing pretty well for yourself." "I'm empty, Celeste. Successful and empty. And I'll take struggling and happy over that any day." She closed her eyes. When she opened them, there was something different there. Something softer. "I don't know if I'm ready to jump back in, but maybe we could start small. Coffee, dinner, supervised visits with Lila so I don't have to give her up too. Whatever you want, whatever pace you need. And you have to promise me something. Anything. If you get scared again, if you start to run, you have to tell me. We fight it together. No more shutting me out. I promise. Promises haven't meant much between us. Then I'll prove it every day until they do again." Celeste looked at him for a long moment. Then she took his hand. Just that small contact sent electricity through him. "Okay," she said. "Let's try." "Yeah?" "Yeah, slow, careful. But let's try." Ethan wanted to kiss her. Wanted to pull her close and never let go. But he knew better now. Knew that rebuilding took time and patience and earning back trust step by step. So he just squeezed her hand. "Thank you." Don't thank me yet. I'm going to make you work for this. Good. I deserve that. They stood there on the rooftop garden as the sun started to set, holding hands, and Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in months, peace. Lila found them a few minutes later. Are you guys done talking? Because I made something for Celeste and I want to give it to her before we leave. What did you make, sweetheart? Celeste asked. Lila pulled out a carefully folded piece of paper. It's a drawing of us, all three of us, at the beach. She unfolded it to reveal a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures, one tall with dark hair labeled Daddy, one medium with blonde hair labeled Celeste, and one small with pigtails labeled Me. They were holding hands on a beach with a bright yellow sun overhead. We've never been to the beach together, Celeste said softly. I know, but maybe we could go someday, if you and Daddy stop being dumb and scared. Lila looked between them. Are you still being dumb and scared? Ethan looked at Celeste. Celeste looked back at him, and they both started laughing, real laughter that came from somewhere deep and honest. We're trying to be less dumb and scared, Ethan said. Trying very hard, Celeste added. Good, because I want to go to the beach, and I want us to be a family, the real kind, where people don't leave even when things are hard. Celeste knelt down to Lila's level. I'm going to be honest with you, sweetheart. Your dad and I are going to take things slow. We hurt each other before, and we need time to fix that. But I'm not leaving. Not you, not him, not anymore. You promise? I promise. Lila threw her arms around Celeste's neck. Good, because I love you, and I want you to stay. I love you too. Ethan watched them together, his daughter and the woman he loved, and felt the last piece of his broken heart click back into place. They had a long way to go, trust to rebuild, wounds to heal, fears to face, but they were going to do it together, and that was everything. The crowd downstairs called for Ethan, more people wanting photos, congratulations, to talk about future projects. He went reluctantly, looking back at Celeste and Lila on the rooftop. Go, Celeste said. This is your moment. Enjoy it. Come with me. I don't want to overshadow your success. You won't. You're part of it, please. She hesitated, then nodded. Okay. They went downstairs together, and if people stared, if cameras flashed, if reporters shouted questions about their relationship and the scandal, Ethan didn't care. Because Celeste was beside him, Lila was holding both their hands, and for the first time in over a year, everything felt right. Daniel caught his eye from across the room and grinned, giving him a thumbs up. Rachel mouthed about time and wiped at her eyes. The mayor pulled Ethan aside. This is incredible work. The city wants to discuss a contract for 3 more community centers in underserved neighborhoods. Would your firm be interested? A year ago, Ethan would have immediately worried about whether the offer was legitimate or if people would think he got it because of Celeste. Now he just said, absolutely, send me the details and we'll set up a meeting. Because he'd learned something over the past year. Success wasn't about doing everything alone. It was about accepting help from people who believed in you, working your ass off to deserve their faith, and building something meaningful in the process. And he'd learned something else too. Love wasn't about being perfect or never making mistakes. It was about choosing someone even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. He'd failed that test once. He wouldn't fail it again. As the sun set on the opening day of the Riverside Community Center, Ethan stood in the building he'd designed, surrounded by people celebrating what they'd created together, with Celeste by his side and Lila dancing through the crowd, showing everyone her beach drawing, and thought, this is what I was fighting for all along. Not just success, not just recognition, but this, love and family, and work that mattered, and a future that felt possible instead of terrifying. It had taken losing everything to figure that out. But now that he had, he wasn't letting go. Not ever again. Starting over wasn't like flipping a switch. It was messy and uncertain, and nothing like the movies made it look. Their first official coffee date, a week after the community center opening, was awkward as hell. They sat across from each other at the cafe where they'd first reconnected over terrible coffee and excellent pastries, and struggled to find words that didn't feel weighted with history. So, Ethan said, stirring sugar into his cup for the 3rd time. So, Celeste echoed. This is weird, right? Extremely weird. She almost smiled. We've seen each other naked, and now we can't figure out how to have a normal conversation. Maybe we skip the small talk and just be honest? About what? About how terrified I am that I'm going to screw this up again. About how every time you look at me, I wonder if you're remembering all the ways I failed you. About how much I want to reach across this table and hold your hand, but I'm not sure if I'm allowed to yet. Celeste set down her coffee. You want honesty? I'm terrified too. I'm terrified that I'm making a mistake trusting you again, that I'm setting myself up to get hurt because I'm too weak to stay away. That even if we make it work, something else will come along and tear us apart, because that's what always happens when I let myself be happy. That's pretty dark. You asked for honest. Ethan reached across the table, stopped with his hand halfway. Can I? She looked at his hand, then at his face. Then she reached out and took it. Yeah, you can. Their fingers intertwined and Ethan felt like he could breathe for the first time in days. I'm going to mess up, he said. I'm going to say the wrong thing or get scared or do something stupid because I'm human and I'm flawed and I'm still learning how to be the kind of person who deserves you. I'm going to mess up too. I'm going to be controlling and guarded and probably push you away when I get scared because that's what I do. That's my default. She squeezed his hand. But I'm trying, really trying, to be different, to trust that you won't leave the second things get hard. I won't, I swear. Don't swear, just show me, day by day. I can do that. They sat there holding hands across a table sticky with spilled sugar, and it felt like a beginning. The next few weeks were a careful dance of building something new on the foundation of something broken. Coffee dates turned into dinners. Dinners turned into walks through the city where they'd talk about everything and nothing, slow and deliberate and honest in ways they hadn't been before. Celeste met with her therapist twice a week. Ethan kept his Tuesday appointments. They talked about what they were learning, the patterns they were trying to break, the fears they were working through. My therapist says I use work to avoid intimacy, Celeste said one evening over Thai food at Ethan's apartment. Lila was at a sleepover giving them rare time alone. My therapist says I use struggle as an identity because it feels safer than success. We're quite a pair. The most dysfunctional. But we're trying. That counts for something. It did count, more than Ethan had realized. A month into their careful rebuilding, Celeste showed up at his apartment unannounced on a Tuesday night. He opened the door to find her standing there in sweatpants and an old t-shirt, her eyes red from crying. I had a bad day, she said. Come in. She walked past him into the living room and collapsed on the couch. He'd finally replaced the old one, though the new one wasn't much better. The consulting firm is struggling. 3 clients pulled out this week because they're worried about the controversy. My former board is spreading rumors that I'm difficult to work with. And I got a call from a reporter asking if I regret recommending you for the Riverside project. What did you say? I told him to go to hell and hung up. She wiped at her eyes. But the truth is, I've been asking myself the same question. Not because I regret it. I don't. Your work deserved that opportunity. But because it cost me so much, and sometimes I wonder if I'd do it differently if I could go back. Ethan sat beside her. Would you? I don't know. Maybe. Probably not. I'm a mess, Ethan. Join the club. We have jackets. She laughed despite herself. This is the part where you're supposed to tell me it's going to be okay. I'm not going to lie to you. Maybe it won't be okay. Maybe your consulting firm will fail. Maybe the rumors will keep spreading. Maybe people will keep using our relationship as ammunition. He took her hand. But you're going to survive it. You're going to build something new, and you're not going to do it alone. How do you know? Because you're Celeste Rowan. You've survived worse than some scared men spreading lies. And because I'm not leaving, even when you're a mess. Especially when you're a mess. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I'm so tired of fighting. Then rest. Just for tonight. Let me carry some of it. They sat there in silence, her breathing eventually evening out as exhaustion took over. Ethan held her and thought about all the times she'd held him together when he was falling apart. All the times she'd believed in him when he couldn't believe in himself. This was love. Not the fireworks and grand gestures, but this. Showing up when someone needed you, carrying their weight when they couldn't, choosing them even when it was hard. He'd learned that the hard way, but at least he'd learned it. 2 months into rebuilding, Lila asked the question Ethan had been dreading. Are you and Celeste back together for real, or are you still figuring it out? They were having breakfast. Saturday morning pancakes, slightly burnt because Ethan still couldn't quite get the heat right. We're figuring it out, Ethan said carefully. Why? Because Emma at school says her parents are figuring it out, and that means they're getting divorced. And I don't want you and Celeste to get divorced before you even get married. We're not getting divorced, Bean. We were never married. You know what I mean. Ethan set down his spatula. Celeste and I are taking things slow. We're rebuilding trust. We're learning how to be better for each other. That takes time. How much time? I don't know. As much as we need. Lila stabbed at her pancake with more force than necessary. I just want things to be normal, like they were before you guys broke up. When Celeste would come over and we'd have dinner and she'd read me stories and you'd smile like you weren't sad all the time. I smile now. Not the same. You smile like you're trying. Before you smiled like you couldn't help it. The observation hit harder than it should have. I'm sorry this has been hard on you. I don't want sorry. I want my family back. Lila, I know you guys aren't married. I know you're both scared, but you love each other, and I love both of you, and I don't understand why that's not enough. Later that day, after Lila had gone to her friend's house, Ethan called Celeste. Lila wants to know when we're going to stop figuring it out and just be together. What did you tell her? That we're taking the time we need, but honestly, I don't know anymore. Are we rebuilding something real, or are we just too scared to let go? Silence on the other end. Then, can you come over? I think we need to have this conversation in person. Celeste's new apartment was smaller than her old one. A deliberate choice, she'd said, something that felt more like a home and less like a showroom. Ethan had only been there twice before. She let him in, poured wine, neither of them drank, and they sat on opposite ends of her couch like strangers. I've been thinking about what we're doing, Celeste said finally. This careful dance, this slow rebuild, and I think we're lying to ourselves. Ethan's stomach dropped. What do you mean? I mean, we're either together or we're not. We either trust each other or we don't. And all this taking it slow is just another way of protecting ourselves from getting hurt again. So what are you saying? I'm saying I'm tired of being careful. I'm tired of measuring every word and second-guessing every feeling. I'm tired of loving you but not letting myself really love you because I'm scared. She turned to face him. I want to be all in or all out, but I can't do this halfway thing anymore. All in means risking everything again. I know. It means trusting that I won't run, that you won't shut me out, that we'll fight for this even when it's hard. I know that too. She moved closer. The question is whether you're ready for that. Because I am. I'm done protecting myself. I'm done playing it safe. I want you, Ethan, all of you. The scared parts and the brave parts and everything in between. But I need to know you want the same thing. Ethan looked at her, this brilliant, complicated, beautiful woman who'd seen him at his worst and was still willing to risk her heart on him, and felt every defense he'd been carrying fall away. I want all in, he said. I want morning coffee and burnt pancakes and fights about stupid things and making up after. I want Lila to have the family she's been asking for. I want to wake up next to you and know that you're not going anywhere. I want to build a life with you, not just date you carefully from a safe distance. Then let's do it. Let's stop protecting ourselves and just be together. Just like that? Just like that. No more therapy homework before we kiss. No more measuring out our feelings in careful doses. Just us. Messy and imperfect and trying our best. Ethan closed the distance between them. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He kissed her then. Really kissed her. For the first time in over a year without reservation or fear or the weight of everything they'd lost. Just them, choosing each other, all in. When they finally pulled apart, Celeste was crying. Happy tears? Ethan asked. Terrified tears, but also happy tears. She laughed through them. I can't believe we're doing this. We're doing this. Lila's going to lose her mind. She's going to be insufferable about being right. We'll never hear the end of it. Never, Ethan agreed and kissed her again. They told Lila the next morning over breakfast. Ethan had invited Celeste to make pancakes with them, a new Saturday tradition they were starting. So, Ethan said, attempting casual and failing miserably, Celeste and I have some news. Lila looked up from her orange juice, her eyes narrowing. Good news or grown-up news that's actually bad news? Good news, Celeste said, reaching for Ethan's hand across the table. Your dad and I are officially back together, for real this time. No more figuring it out. We're all in. Lila's face went through several emotions in rapid succession: surprise, joy, suspicion, then triumph. I knew it. I told Sarah you guys would stop being dumb. Language, Ethan said reflexively. You say worse when you burn things. She turned to Celeste. Does this mean you're moving in? We haven't talked about that yet, Celeste started. You should move in. Then we can be a real family, and I can show you my new rock collection every day instead of just on weekends. That's very tempting, Celeste said, smiling, but your dad and I need to take some things one step at a time. You just said you were done taking it slow. We are. But there's a difference between committing to each other and immediately moving in together. Lila considered this. Okay, but you're going to move in eventually, right? And then you're going to get married? And then maybe I can have a little sister? Emma has a little sister, and she says it's annoying, but I think she's lying because she plays with her all the time. Ethan choked on his coffee. Celeste's eyes went wide. Let's maybe focus on the back together part first, Ethan managed. Fine, but I'm just saying, I'd be a really good big sister. She went back to her pancakes like she hadn't just mapped out their entire future, leaving Ethan and Celeste staring at each other across the table. She's intense, Celeste said. She gets it from me. That's what I'm afraid of. But she was smiling, and Ethan was smiling, and Lila was making plans that were both terrifying and wonderful, and it felt like maybe they were actually going to be okay. The next few months were everything the careful rebuilding hadn't been. Loud and messy and full of the kind of arguments that came from actually sharing your life with someone instead of dating them at arm's length. They fought about stupid things. About whether to load the dishwasher a certain way, about whose turn it was to pick Lila up from school, about Celeste's tendency to work until midnight and Ethan's habit of leaving sketches everywhere. But they also made up, talked through it, learned each other's patterns and triggers and how to fight fair instead of fighting to win. Celeste didn't move in right away, but she started spending more nights than not at Ethan's apartment, started keeping clothes in his closet and a toothbrush in his bathroom, started feeling less like a visitor and more like she belonged. Ethan's firm continued to grow. The 3 additional community centers the mayor had mentioned became a reality. He hired 4 more people, moved to an actual office instead of working from his apartment, started getting calls from other cities interested in his approach to accessible design. Success didn't feel hollow anymore, because he was sharing it with someone who understood the work, who celebrated the wins and helped carry the losses, who reminded him that his worth wasn't tied to his achievements. Celeste's consulting firm started to stabilize. The clients who'd left were replaced by new ones who valued her expertise over gossip. She developed a reputation for sustainable development that actually worked, not just in theory, but in practice. Started speaking at conferences again, writing articles, reclaiming her voice in the industry. 6 months after they got back together, Ethan took Celeste and Lila to the beach. It was Lila's idea, inspired by the drawing she'd made. You promised, she'd said, remember? When you guys stopped being dumb, we were going to go to the beach. So they went. Drove 3 hours to a stretch of coast that wasn't too crowded, found a spot near the water, and spent the day doing absolutely nothing productive. Lila ran in and out of the waves, collecting shells and declaring each one the best one ever. Celeste built an elaborate sandcastle that Lila immediately wanted to destroy. Ethan took photos of both of them, wanting to remember this, the ordinariness of it, the joy, the sense that this was what family felt like. As the sun started to set, they sat together on a blanket, Lila between them, watching the sky turn pink and orange. This is nice, Lila said, her head on Celeste's shoulder. It is, Celeste agreed. Are you happy? Lila asked. Both of you? Ethan looked at Celeste. Celeste looked back at him, and they both nodded. Yeah, Bean, Ethan said. We're happy. Good. Because I was worried. When you guys broke up, I thought maybe grown-ups just couldn't be happy. Like maybe love always turns sad eventually. But you guys proved that wrong. Love doesn't always turn sad, Celeste said softly. Sometimes it gets stronger. If you work at it. If you choose it even when it's hard. Like you guys did? Like we're still doing. Every day. Lila smiled, satisfied with that answer. Can we come back here next year? Absolutely, Ethan said. And the year after that? Every year if you want. Good. Because I like traditions. And I like us. All three of us together. She fell asleep on the drive home, her new shells clutched in her hand. Ethan carried her up to bed while Celeste unpacked the car, and when he came back down, he found her standing in his living room looking at the photos from the day on her phone. Thank you, she said. For what? For not giving up. On us. On this. She turned to face him. A year ago, I thought I'd lost everything. My company, my reputation, you, and now I'm standing here in your apartment looking at photos of our day at the beach, and I realize I didn't lose anything that mattered. I just let go of things that were weighing me down. The board was weighing you down. The constant performance was. The need to be perfect all the time. The fear of showing any weakness. You helped me see that being human wasn't a liability, that I could be vulnerable and still be strong, that I could fail and still be worthy. Ethan pulled her close. You taught me the same thing, that accepting help wasn't weakness, that success didn't mean I was taking something from someone else, that I deserved good things even when I hadn't suffered enough to earn them. We're quite the pair of walking therapy victories. The best kind. She kissed him, soft and sure. I love you, Ethan Mercer. I love you too, Celeste Rowan. What if I don't want to be Celeste Rowan anymore? He pulled back to look at her. What do you mean? I mean that name comes with a lot of baggage, a lot of expectations, a lot of history I'm trying to move past. What if I wanted to be someone else? Like who? She smiled. I don't know yet, but I've been thinking about it, about what it would mean to start fresh, really fresh. New name, new identity, new life built on what I want instead of what my father wanted, or what the board expected, or what the world thinks I should be. That's a big change. I've made bigger ones. I walked away from a company I spent 20 years building. I think I can handle changing my name. Well, when you figure out who you want to be, let me know. I'll love you just the same. Even if I'm nobody important? You're already somebody important, to me, to Lila. That's all that matters. 3 months later, Ethan proposed. Not in some elaborate public display, not at a fancy restaurant or on a jumbotron or any of the theatrical ways people seem to think proposals needed to happen. He did it on a random Tuesday night, while they were doing dishes after dinner. Lila was at the kitchen table doing homework, Celeste was drying while Ethan washed, and it just felt right. Marry me, he said, handing her a plate. She nearly dropped it. What? Marry me. Not because we need a piece of paper, or because it's the next logical step, or because Lila keeps asking when you're going to be her real mom. Marry me because I want to choose you every day for the rest of my life. Because you make me better and braver and more human. Because I love you, and I want everyone to know it. Celeste set down the plate, her hand shaking. That's a terrible proposal. You don't even have a ring. I have a ring. I've had it for 2 months. I just couldn't figure out the right moment, and then I realized there is no right moment. Just this. Us. Right now. He pulled the ring from his pocket. Simple, elegant, nothing flashy because he knew she'd hate that. Took her wet, soapy hand. Celeste Rowan, or whoever you decide to be, will you marry me? She looked at him with tears streaming down her face. Then at Lila, who'd abandoned her homework to watch with barely contained excitement. Yes, Celeste said. Yes, I'll marry you. Lila screamed. Actually screamed. I knew it. I told Sarah this was going to happen. The ring slipped on perfectly. Celeste laughed and cried and kissed him while Lila danced around the kitchen chanting, I'm getting a mom, I'm getting a mom. Technically, you're getting a stepmom, Ethan corrected. Same thing, close enough. I don't care. We're going to be a family. They were married 4 months later, not in some grand venue or celebrity-filled affair, but in the Riverside Community Center. The building where it all started. Where Celeste's belief in Ethan had created something bigger than both of them. The ceremony was small, just close friends and family, a few community members who'd been part of the design process, Daniel as best man, Rachel as maid of honor. Lila served as both flower girl and ring bearer, taking her duties so seriously that she nearly cried when one petal landed slightly off the designated path. Celeste wore a simple dress, nothing designer or expensive. Ethan wore a suit that actually fit, that he'd bought instead of borrowed. They wrote their own vows. I promise to choose you even when I'm scared, Ethan said, his voice cracking, to trust you with my failures as much as my successes, to build a life with you that's honest and messy and real, to never run again. I promise to let you in even when it's hard, Celeste said through tears, to trust that loving you doesn't make me weak, to build a partnership based on truth instead of performance, to never shut you out again. They kissed while everyone applauded, and Lila shouted, "Finally!" loud enough to make several people laugh. At the reception, catered by the same Thai restaurant where they'd had countless dinners, Ethan stood with his new wife and his daughter and looked around at the community center filled with people celebrating their union, and felt something he'd spent most of his life chasing: contentment, not the absence of struggle or fear or doubt, but the presence of something stronger, love that had been tested and survived, trust that had been broken and rebuilt, a family that had chosen each other over and over until the choosing became permanent. Daniel found him during the dancing, pulled him aside. "You did good, man." We both did good. All of us. Together. Still, a year and a half ago, you were sitting in your apartment convinced you'd lost everything. And now look at you, married to the woman you love, thriving career, kid who won't shut up about how she was right about everything. She was right about everything. I know. She's going to be insufferable about it for years. Ethan laughed. Worth it. Later, when the reception was winding down and Lila was asleep in a corner chair, curled up in her fancy dress with Rachel's jacket over her, Celeste found Ethan standing by the dedication plaque. "Thinking deep thoughts?" she asked, sliding her arm around his waist. "Thinking about how this almost didn't happen. How I almost threw away the best thing in my life because I was too scared to believe I deserved it. But you didn't throw it away. You fought for it. We both did. We did." He turned to face her. "I know we're supposed to have some profound realization at the end of all this, some lesson we learned. But honestly, I think the lesson is simpler than that." "What is it?" "That love isn't about being perfect or having your life together or never making mistakes. It's about showing up, even when you're scared, even when you've failed before, even when everyone is telling you it won't work. You show up and you try and you keep choosing each other until choosing becomes who you are." Celeste smiled. "That's pretty profound for someone who claims not to have profound realizations. I've had good teachers, you, Lila, my therapist who charges too much but is probably worth it. Definitely worth it." They stood there in the community center they'd built together, literally and figuratively, and Ethan thought about everything that had brought them to this moment. The chance meeting at an engagement party he hadn't wanted to attend, the honest conversation on a balcony between two lonely people, the love that had grown fast and burned bright and nearly destroyed both of them before teaching them how to be better. It wasn't a perfect story. There were no villains who got their comeuppance, no dramatic reversals that fixed everything, no moments where problems dissolved because love conquered all. The board members who'd forced Celeste out were still running Rowan Enterprises, though several had quietly resigned after the shareholder revolt. Madison was still married to Derek, still living her perfect-looking life that probably had its own set of problems Ethan would never know about. The reporters who'd turned their relationship into a scandal had moved on to new targets, new stories, leaving destruction in their wake without consequence. Life wasn't fair. Success didn't always reward merit. Good people suffered while bad people prospered. The system was broken and would probably stay broken. But within that messy, imperfect world, you could still choose to love someone, could still build something meaningful, could still create spaces, physical and emotional, where people felt seen and valued and safe. That was the real lesson. Not that love conquered all, but that it gave you the strength to keep trying even when all seemed unconquerable. Not that everything would work out, but that the trying was worth it regardless of the outcome. Ethan had learned that the hard way, had lost everything before he understood that the risk of loving someone wasn't failure. The real failure was choosing fear over possibility, protection over connection, safety over truth. "What are you thinking about?" Celeste asked, studying his face. "How grateful I am. For you. For this. For the chance to build a life that's actually worth living instead of just surviving." "Me too." She rested her head on his shoulder. "Think we can do it? Build something that lasts?" "I think we're already doing it. Every day. One choice at a time. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." She lifted her head to kiss him, and Ethan tasted salt from her tears, felt the weight of her ring pressing against his back as she held him close, and knew that whatever came next, whatever challenges or fears or moments of doubt, they would face it together. Not perfectly, not without mistakes or arguments or days when they both wanted to give up, but together, choosing each other, building a life one honest moment at a time. Rachel woke Lila gently, and the four of them, soon to be legally bound as a family, walked out of the community center into the cool night air. Lila held both their hands, swinging between them, already planning their next beach trip and asking when they could get a dog. "Maybe next year," Celeste said, catching Ethan's eye with a smile that said they'd be having a longer conversation about this later. "But I want one now," Lila protested. "A big one, that can swim." "We'll talk about it," Ethan said, the universal parent response that meant, "Probably not, but I don't want to argue right now." They drove home together in Celeste's car. The fancy one had been traded for something more practical, more family-friendly, more real. Lila fell asleep in the back seat before they'd gone 3 blocks. Ethan reached over and took Celeste's hand. "I love you," he said. Simple. True. Everything. "I love you too," she replied. And that was it. No grand finale. No sweeping declaration, just 2 people who'd found each other in the middle of their own separate disasters, who'd hurt each other and healed each other and chosen each other over and over until the choosing became permanent. Just a family driving home at the end of a long, perfect day, with a future stretching out in front of them that was uncertain and terrifying and full of possibility. Just love. Messy and imperfect and real. And it was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Because in the end, that's what Ethan had learned. What they'd both learned. Success wasn't measured in contracts or companies or public recognition. It was measured in moments like this. In the weight of a child asleep in the back seat, in the warmth of a hand holding yours, in the courage to keep showing up even after you've failed, to keep choosing love even when fear whispers that you'll lose it. The Riverside Community Center would stand for decades. Ethan would design dozens more buildings. Celeste would build a consulting empire that actually reflected her values. Lila would grow up watching her parents choose each other every day and would learn that love wasn't about perfection. It was about persistence. But all of that was just context, just the framework around what really mattered. What really mattered was this. 2 people who'd been broken finding each other in the wreckage and deciding that together they could build something worth keeping. A family formed not by biology or obligation, but by choice. A life built on truth instead of performance. That was the story worth telling. Not the scandal or the struggle or the public drama, but the quiet, persistent choosing that happened after all of that. The everyday miracle of loving someone and being loved in return. Ethan pulled into the parking spot at their apartment building. Technically still his apartment, though Celeste's things had taken over most of the space, and they'd been talking about finding somewhere bigger, somewhere that felt like theirs instead of his or hers. He looked at his wife, sleeping peacefully in the passenger seat, her hand still holding his. Looked at his daughter in the rearview mirror, her face soft with dreams. Thought about the home waiting for them upstairs, imperfect and lived in and real. And he smiled. Not the careful smile of someone trying to convince themselves things were okay, but the genuine, unguarded smile of someone who'd finally stopped running from happiness and learned to stay. This was enough. This was everything. And this time, he wasn't going to let fear tell him otherwise. He gently squeezed Celeste's hand. "We're home." She opened her eyes, smiled at him with the kind of warmth that still made his heart skip. "Yeah, we are." And they were. Finally, completely, undeniably home.